Well, it's been almost exactly 2 years, and finally, the pandemic is dissipating. We made our choices, we learned our lessons, and it's a new dawn. And it's a new season for the year 2022, and a new time for all of us to embrace new life, new opportunities, new abundance. And while we balance our care and genuine prayer for peace and the awareness of a world that still includes unthinkable tragedy and sorrow and even war, we also are grateful for how blessed we are. And so let us use this spring of 2022 to take everything that we've learned, clear the past, and move forward in gratitude for the freedom that we have, for the blessings of our lives, for the opportunity to come together again in community, online, and yes, in person. We are all part of the awakening world, and we all have the roles that we're playing as individuals and collectively. We are the imaginal cells finding each other to create a beautiful, incredible butterfly out of the old paradigm. So welcome to spring of 2022. Welcome to the awakening world.
We come from the same source, a powerful love force. We're coming together, stronger than ever, not divided. We come from the same source, a powerful love force. We're coming together, hear the call, you are invited. We come from the same source, a powerful love force.
Welcome, everybody, and happy April Fool's Day to you. Well, it's the 1st of April. It's a new season for the awakening world and for the global peace. And we've got, I think, a really fun show tonight. We're going to have fun, and we're going to learn a lot, too. And I've got some of my absolute favorite human beings joining us. We are collaborating all weekend long, again, with Relationflix. And Relationflix is a brand new platform that's bringing you and me and all of us all the best coaches and relationship information video. And of course, we're going to be learning about Relationflix all across the weekend. And it just so happens that a lot of Relationflix's top coaches are also members of Love Coach Academy. So it's one big happy family, and we look forward to participating. And even my dog Jasmine Bear is with us tonight. And we are going to share some of our kind of embarrassing moments when we were all fools in love. So I want to encourage those of you that are in our Zoom room, and already a lot of our friends are with us. If you haven't let us know where you are yet geographically, please do so. And I see we've got people in Philadelphia, Kauai, Santa Rosa, California, Seattle, Pennsylvania. And then when I look down here, I'm looking at all of our friends watching on Unify. And likewise, friends on Unify, let us know where you're from geographically. And for extra bonus points, if anybody puts into the chat your embarrassing moment, when were you a fool for love? It's April Fool's Day. It's all about love. Let's have some fun. And as we share the stories, we might also have an opportunity then to hear from some coaches on how to, kind of some tools, some ways to practice not getting quite so hurt, maybe, or whatever it might be. So, with no further ado, let me briefly introduce who we've got with us. And first off the bat is my good buddy, Steve Rowland. And Steve is somebody who holds the record for having taken my Relationship Essentials course the most number of times. And what's brilliant about that is how dedicated Steve is to really understanding and being masterful in relationship. Therefore, he then went on to create Relationflix. He's a trauma-informed relationship communication and emotional intelligence expert. He's brilliant and he's a super cool guy. I love Steve Rowland, and thank you for being with us. And also, I'm going to put them on together, is Steve's partner in creating Relationflix, and this is Dolphin Casper. They're both Canadian, and Dolphin is an author, transformational communicator, and a human potential enthusiast. I love that. He's been coaching, speaking, and facilitating internationally for over 20 years, loves bringing his unique brand of transformation to people, and he is a brand new father. So he has given birth to Relationflix, and he's given birth to his very own first child. So welcome both of you guys. We're going to be hearing a lot from you this weekend. I also want to introduce a new friend who I've actually just recently met. This is Shai Fishman, and he has put together something awesome. It's called Leveled Up Love, and it's an international community and education platform, and it's designed to support polyamorous partners in building more conscious and secure open relationships. And believe me, that is a really important practice. In fact, I'm teaching a class for him a week from Saturday. So Shai, welcome aboard. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
And although there are 4 men, there is one magnificent woman who can handle all 4 of us. And it is my wonderful teaching partner, the co-host of the Friday night show. It's Trish Wright.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Scott. That's so sweet. I'm really good at herding cats. I'm not really good at, I'm good at feeding dogs, though.
Yeah. Well, so you're in Hawaii. Aloha.
I am in Hawaii, and it's beautiful and rainy out here, and it's good. It's just good for my skin in all of the ways it is.
So would you be willing to introduce to the audience what we're going to be doing for starters with April Fools?
Yes. So happy April Fools in Love. And we're going to be sharing stories about when we were fools in love, or maybe foolish. I can't start because I haven't quite nailed down, at least I have many. Like, that's the problem. Oh God, we have all night. I could just tell you stories about when I was foolish. I don't know if I have all that much time. So I'm like, which story? So I'm going to pass it to someone else who has a fiery and see if I can theme, because who knows where this might go.
Hey, Dolphin, how about you? Would you be willing to get us started?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just sort of rifling through my memories around times when I was foolish, and there's a number, but one kind of popped out, and I think it's just a fun / painful story. The humor is really present now. At the time, not as much, but so I'll bring us back. I was 20 years old, a lifetime ago for me, and I really fell for this woman. And we were actually working together in a really unique environment where we were traveling around the province where I was living and working, and doing really interesting things in different communities all over the place. And we would kind of get together and work together quite intensely for several days. And then we'd be kind of somewhere else working. And the time that we were together, there was just like this electricity. And then we started to kind of connect intimately and fool around. And my heart was just like big explosions. I was just all into it. And she was too, but I could tell there was a lot going on in her life. And there was a sense that I was more invested than her. Nonetheless, as we kept hanging out, at some point I dropped the 3-word bomb, and I said, I love you. And it was sort of this sort of, I said it, I had no expectation, but it was very awkward silence. And after maybe 15 or 20 seconds, she changed the subject, and okay. And then it was like, when that happens and then it's not reciprocated, there's something going on. There's an imbalance. And so that imbalance played out for a few more weeks. We kept seeing each other and hanging out, and there was still some electricity, but it just wasn't the same. And we were sitting in a cafe, and at some point she was sort of looking off into the distance. She said, I love you too. And so more silence, right? I was sort of like, oh, I sort of like let it in, and took a moment. And then at some point I looked at her and I said, I'm curious what took you so long. And she said, at first there was sort of like a confused look on her face. And then like a light bulb, and she went, "Oh no, U2. The band U2 was playing on the speakers in the cafe." And I was like, and that was pretty much it. There was just, we never found our way home from that moment. And yeah, that was a foolish moment in time.
Oh. I'm just putting all the rest of us on for a minute so we can all give you a little empathy. Oh, what a high and what a low, right? What a,
Very quickly, in quick succession.
yeah. Ooch. Wow. Shai, do you want to share your story? Do you got one ready?
Well, mine is from the polyagony files. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of NRE, New Relationship Energy. And I remember.
But for some of us who don't, can you just
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you for
watching.
Sometimes you need to know your audience, right? Yeah, New Relationship Energy in the polyamorous world is when you find a new partner and you're just kind of moving pretty fast, and that causes rupture with your primary partner. And this is an NRE story. So yeah, I remember I was probably still a poly baby, maybe about a year and a half or so into it, after decades of monogamy. And I've always been kind of a hopeless romantic, even when I was monogamous. So I remember going on a date with this beautiful Belarusian model, and we had the most incredible date. I remember we went out for sushi, we went out dancing, we made out on the first date. It was just like really beautiful. And then a couple of days later, I went to my primary partner and shared a little bit about how strong the connection was, which was fine. You know, we were polyamorous, things were good. And then I said, I would love for her to join our family vacation this weekend. I love your response, Trish. So I got the nickname Shy Speed at that point because I literally had no control over New Relationship Energy. And that was the beginning of the end of my primary relationship right there. Yeah, it was painful. Never really recovered from that. So it was a painful, agonizing 9 months of trying to work that traumatic moment out. Yeah. Thank you.
These stories are like getting us off to a start, you know? Wow. Stephen, you got one?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go. I think like all of us, I was digging through the archives and looking for a juicy story to bring up, and I was like, should I tell the story about the time that I moved to another province or state for my American friends for a woman, only to have her go into complete avoidance of me? Or should I tell the story of the time where I proposed to someone who is just not right for me at all on stage at a live theater? But one particular frequency or quality or energy came up in a different story, so I'm going to go there. I was in a relationship probably 9 years ago, and it was passionate and explosive and eruptive, and we genuinely loved each other a lot. And there was a quality where like we would be out in public and people would come up to us and approach us, complete strangers, and say, wow, I just want to say you two look so happy together. Like we had a vibe, and it was a beautiful thing. And behind closed doors, it was extraordinarily difficult. And some of the things that people in my life didn't actually see on the surface was she had a tendency towards being abusive, both psychologically and physically at times. And despite the level of difficulty, like it was easily the most difficult relationship that I've ever been in. That was just, it was so messy. And the foolish thing that I did was actually stay. And here's how that showed up. At the time, I had this identity that I was going to be this strong, divine, masculine, unmovable post in the middle of the stormy ocean type of, and a self-identity and belief system, that was like the highest expression of masculine love that was possible. And I needed to be rooted in that all the way. And so I treated the difficulty in the relationship as a challenge for me to stay rooted in that. And the relationship just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And the more it got worse, the more I tried to pillar there. And looking back with 2020 hindsight, it was actually really harmful for me to do that. And I was so over-identified with wanting to be this highest expression of love that there was something in me that also equated that if I couldn't hold that frequency and hold that really firm, that I was a failure. And it meant that it was on me instead. And that was a difficult reality to face. And of course, the relationship ultimately ended in an eruption of toxic glory, I'll call it. It was messy. And here's how the relationship ended, was with me just like clinging. Like I was a warrior for love mentality, right? And I was clinging. And it was just, she had a more accurate finger on the pulse than I did. Like she knew things we should let it dissolve and let it go because of just the amount of toxicity there was. But I fought because I was the warrior for love that I was. And so in the final weeks of a relationship, I suggested that we should have a child together. And I can see that was just like an insecure attachment patterning and like extreme anxious attachment response for my attachment theory nerds and friends out there. And yeah, I can see how like my over identification with being this warrior for love caused me to show up in a way that was actually not engaging with what was really true with reality. And I was kind of my own distorted world about it. So that's the story I got.
Can just bring everybody on. I so appreciate the vulnerability of that. And you know, because Stephen, you've been to many of my retreats and you've been in many of your classes. I often will ask people by raise of hands, who has spent a year or longer in a bad relationship based on potential? If only he was that way all the time, like when we took ecstasy. He was so loving that night, right? And it is, you know, your story is so beautiful because we have all done that. And it is classic. We so want it to work. It's like it looks the way we want, or the moments that are good are so good. And so we try and put a square peg into a round hole. Yeah. Trish, anything you want to say about that?
Even I'm just feeling you. I decided that was going to be the thing multiple times. But I chose that I wanted to open up the relationship and make it polyamorous, which I wish I would have known that it would have tripped every core wound that I have never worked on because I never saw it before. It touched everything for both of us, and it was just deeply tragic. And at that moment, I was like, oh, there's a reason why he has had 5 crazy ex-girlfriends. That could have been a red flag. You're so cute, girl. So I'm just feeling that. I stayed for a long time.
Well, now that the spotlight's on you anyway.
Okay. I actually do have a really silly, funny story, and I'm going to try to make it brief. So after this partnership that just was really, really tragic, I decided that I was going to find someone just to have physical connection with, because I was like, I haven't done anything with anybody else. Maybe I should just go be free. It had been months, and I was like, so I found this guy on OkCupid, and he was he was me. And I was like, yeah, this is me. It's gonna be great. It was sort of great. And he was exactly me in my previous relationship. So I was dating myself in the previous, like, oh, wow. Wow. It took me a long time to get clear with that. But the story was, we're in Hawaii, and we've done this like shamanic retreat together, where I am just triggering the bejesus out of him every step of the way. Like, I mean, I am just touching every attachment when he has. And if I turn my light up at all, he's like, the whole thing was just tragic. So he goes off. We go to the Tantra festival together even. It's great. Then he goes off to do the second version of this retreat. And then I'm going to work. And then we meet on the last day. And he decides that on this last day, we were going to reach higher levels of consciousness through some extracurricular thing. And we're going to get up at 4 a.m. Anybody who knows me, 4 a.m, I am not even human. My demon self is out, and I'm like, I haven't even put human skin on yet. I haven't had my coffee. I kicked my bag. I was like all over it. I get sick. Like, the whole thing is just like bad. We finally get to the place, and we're hiking along, and I'm starting to feel a little bit more human, and I'm feeling all right. And, it starts pouring on us, and I was like, oh, God. And then we're looking down at this water, and we're 45 feet above the air, and this wave just crashes over us. And I was like, okay, I mean, maybe it's a sign. We keep walking and walking. We hike up on this last little plateau and way out in the water, and he decides that it was now the time in order to like make I'm having that monthly thing, and so I'm like, oh crap, and I'm struggling to get across the thing to take my diva cup out, and it's rolling across the fucking rock, and I'm just like, this is just crazy. And then finally I settle down, and he says, God, Scott, how PG is this? He says, clean my, and I said, I will not. Is there another way that you want to ask me to do that? It was just like the radical feminist in me is like, no. And he looks at me with just pure, like, I cannot believe you. Because he wants me to like surrender and submit in this moment, and I am just unwilling for that moment to happen. And the whole thing just, he doesn't talk to me for the next 6 hours.
Oh.
But so we walk off this path. I go to the place where we had talked about going. He went some other direction. And so now I'm just really happy and high and doing my thing, kicking around on the thing. And in this, it's above, like way above the beach. It's like on this high cliff. And I find this pile of junk. Just garbage. And of course, I'm rifling through it, and I find this, it's a circular thing, and I find it. And it's a ring. I think it's a ball bearing, but it's actually this beautiful jade ring. And I'm like, how cool is that? And I put it on, and I'm like, going to find him to like have a good time to tell him about it. And he sits here, and he's just like, oh, I guess now's not really the right time, but look what I found. He goes, oh, great. Now you're married to the ocean. And I stayed with him for another, like, I don't know, 6 months. It was just a really, really bad deal. I mean, I could have known way before then, but that was, I should have told me then.
So was there like a quality of like a temper tantrum? Like, great, now you're married to the ocean.
Yeah, it was just like, because he was so mad at me that he really wanted connection, and I was just like not willing. Like, I didn't want that kind of experience with him. It was, I mean, we were on this big platform, and we'd been flown like 3 times by the Coast Guard because we're naked on this rock. Like, we're just hippieing out over. It was just so bad. But that was, if I could explain our relationship in a story, it was literally that.
Again, just looking at what we can all relate to, especially, is within that story, he was so attached to you loving him a certain way. And how many times have we thrown a hissy fit or been with somebody who threw a hissy fit because one person didn't show love the way the other person really needed it or wanted it? And then block all the other forms of love and all the other options for connection because you didn't do that thing for me, so therefore you don't love me, so therefore I get to put up my wall now. Yeah.
You mean the self-fulfilling prophecy?
Yeah.
Early abandonment wounding? Yeah, that.
Yeah, that. Well, I guess it's my turn, isn't it? So I'm actually going to mention two things. One's very quick. I was in a relationship with a woman, and we were down in Mexico, and we decided to get married. And and the idea was, let's not get engagement rings, let's get tattoos, because a tattoo is forever. So I got my tattoo, and she got her tattoo, and 6 weeks later, she left me for a guy 15 years younger. That's the quick story. I just thought of that one. And definitely I was a fool for love, so that was 30 years ago practically, and I still got the damn tattoo. But I will put my wedding ring over it. Thank you very much. The other story, interesting that Dolphin mentioned, his story was when he was 20 years old, and mine also that I'm about to tell, I was 20, and it was really the first woman I really fell in love with. I was running a theater company, and there was an actress who came to work for me, and I immediately had a crush on her, and she was interested in me, and we went out to dinner, and over dinner, we were at the Melting Pot restaurant in West Hollywood, if any of you know that. Literally, our eyes locked, and the room melted. The room completely melted. It was the only time in my entire life, and we were not on drugs or even been drinking. It was like this magical moment where everything disappeared, and it was just she and I. Now, I'm 20 years old, and she's the same age, and I interpreted it to mean, this is my soulmate, this is who I'm supposed to spend my life with. We did continue to date, and we got to the time where she wanted to make love, and she's beautiful. But fool in love Scott was, oh, no, let's save it for our marriage. Well, we never got married. We never made love. She ended up moving to New York, where she got cast on a soap opera. And then 2 years later came back to Hollywood, where she was cast in a show called Falcon Crest. And every Friday night at 10 p.m., I would watch her as the star of this primetime series that I coulda, shoulda, woulda been with. So that's my fool in love story. I'm getting a heart from Trish. I appreciate that. Yeah.
I can definitely see you like
Totally. That's right now. It took a while, but dog. We all want to be adored. My dog adores me.
You're so adored.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to bring all of our friends on, and
hold on. I want to share a comment and I'm going to share a story.
Okay.
Well, I was thinking about an old relationship with a handsome young man, and I had to pick him up because I had the car, and I had to pick him up in a crowded city, and there was a protest going on, and I had to navigate the street that was flooded with protesters. I might have run over something, and one of the protesters hit my car with his hand or something, and my boyfriend said something back. Before the protesters could respond, I was scared so that their protesting anger was going to be projected onto us. I yelled at my boyfriend, and all the protesters around us could hear me. She's like, rah, rah. I love this. This is so human. I love this so much. They backed off, and then we got out of there in one piece. They were like, whoa, this is too much drama for us. I got it. Oh, thanks for sharing that story. How many times have you argued in the car?
Way too many.
Yeah, I know. Is there a rule about not arguing in the car?
Well, in Love Coach Academy, we never argue if we use connected timeouts. That's why we have connected timeouts. Trish.
Okay, so honestly, I know. So I'm going to share one little bit. So the other, maybe a year ago, I was really, really triggered, and I was just like in the car, and I felt like the car was squeezing me tight. And I looked at my person, and I was like, "You need to pull over right now, or I'm going to spontaneously combust in this car." And I got out of the car and was just like, "Ah!" The person's like, "Okay." Just saying, connected timeout. It was connected. It was more like emotional release timeout.
Well, and sometimes we need to have the emotional release, definitely.
We all need
Um,
our man caves and woman caves. Yeah, Nancy, totally.
hey, I'm going to read a comment and then I actually want to go to Shy for a minute. Shauna writes, wow, the vulnerability in telling these stories. Thank you all for sharing. You know, it's all pretty entertaining, all these stories. And it reminds me of how I stayed in relationships because I was like, this is my soulmate. I know it. But then not. It was just an infatuation high, or as Shai talked about, NRE, new relationship energy. And Melinda then writes, love rarely works out when another person is involved. And you know, that's usually true. However, we are fortunate to have with us somebody who is doing his very best to change that. You are looking at Shai Fishman. And Shai has very courageously started an organization called Leveled Up Love.
Only a few more years to go, guys.
Whoops. He started something called Leveled Up Love, and they have all sorts of amazing workshops on how to manage polyamory and open relating. In fact, I'm going to be teaching an empathy class for them on Saturday, April 19th. So, Shai, tell us a little bit about kind of what brought you into this and what are some of the basics for people that realize that they can love more than one person at a time. What are some of the foundational pieces there?
Sure. Thanks for asking. It's a pretty loaded question. There's so many aspects to um, thriving in an open relationship. I think a lot of people have seen their friends, family members, or even themselves crash and burn in a more complex open relationship style. And what I uncovered in coaching multiple partners, and also we've got over, I think we just got to 8,300 members in our community. So really a lot of feedback from them is that there are really 5 pitfalls that seem to be um, the case for most people who are either deep in a polyamorous relationship or thinking about opening up. So what we discovered is that the first one is actually community. For a lot of people, um, opening up, they feel very alone. They feel like their friends and their family just don't get them. It's very hard to ask for relationship advice when the person you're asking that advice from doesn't get you. The number one piece of advice they'd give you is get out, go back to monogamy. Why are you torturing yourself? So, you know, in our case, we've built this community, we've created connection between people, and a lot of friendships have grown from our community. But a second pitfall is really education, right? Some of the wonderful work that you do in terms of emotional attunement, communication, mindsets, understanding attachment theory. All those pieces are so important. And there's so many polyamory books, but not many of them really truly cover some of the things that I mentioned, right? They just teach you how to have rules and boundaries and so forth. But the next pitfall is a really big one, which is the elephant in the room, I think, is just not addressing your trauma, not addressing your wounds from childhood, from past relationships. People are just moving forward with a concept of being open, like I did. I wasn't trauma informed. I wasn't attachment theory informed. And then I went on just being me and wanting to love and love fast and all of that. And once I read a book called Polysecure by Jessica Fern, that was the game changer for me. Actually, I'm super excited that she's been collaborating with our community, and we're doing a big live event with her called the Open Love Experience soon. And what she wrote in her book in Polysecure was just a game changing. She's the first person who took trauma healing, attachment theory, and polyamory and brought it all together masterfully in a book. So teaching and bringing in facilitators and coaches who teach on different modalities to heal trauma, right? Whether it's plant medicine, somatic experiencing, even Tantra or BDSM and kink for healing trauma. That's what we really focus on, because we think that's the elephant in the room. If people can, those that want to venture into an open relationship, many of us have found that it's a vehicle for personal healing. It really does just bring everything out of shadow. You have no choice but to do the work. And then if you do it, on the other side are some really incredibly beautiful relationship. In my case, lots of commitment, lots of love. But then there's an interesting pitfall that comes up, which is dating as a polyamorous person is not as easy as people think. When you go out there on a dating site, for example, and you post in your profile that you're polyamorous, you get your butt handed to you. It's really complex because it's as if you've got three heads. Like, nobody wants to talk to you, at least in the general population of monogamous people. And then on the other hand, if you're in the polyamorous world, there's a lot of people that are called polysaturated, meaning stand in line and wait for them to have some free time. That's also challenging. So, building community, allowing people to discover other people who are like-minded, that's a piece, and offering them dating advice as well is what we do. And then the last pitfall, if I can share, is that people really they are challenged by, love is infinite, but time is finite. And they find themselves with less time with their partner, that they are losing some connection. So what we do is we focus on Tantra to help partners deepen their connection, because if they're not going to have as much quantity of time, they really want to have high quality time together. And that way they're able to also slow down how they communicate, slow down with NRE, for example, which all of that, Tantra 101 is slowing down, right? So all of that put together is what we've uncovered, and we're just looking to solve for all those pitfalls and try to help people get ahead of them, because some people are truly choosing this alternative way of loving more than one person at the same time. And a lot of people, actually, you mentioned, I think we were talking earlier about millennials. I think I read a survey somewhere that close to 40% of millennials would prefer a non-monogamous relationship. That's a huge statistic. So there's a lot of change.
I just brought my favorite millennial on the planet onto the screen here, because I would imagine that you might have some thoughts, Trish. So I'm going to keep the spotlight on both of you together on this topic.
Trish?
I have lots and lots of thoughts and questions for you, Shai. Yeah, there was a point when I was like, you can't put a limit on love, and there was a lot of points about thinking that, like, this, I actually created a judgment for myself that monogamy or monogamous singular love was an infant sort of way to love. Like, I had totally created, like, this broad form of love, because I live in California and I happen to live in the Bay Area, which is pretty, like, being monogamous there is actually a whole other game. Like, wow, you're monogamous? Oh yeah. Like, I got the whole other thing too. I was like, wow. So I had stepped into polyamory for about 7 years and really dove into that. Workshops, and one of my favorite, like, I had a polytherapist named Kathy Labriola. You probably know her. And I learned so much. It taught me how to love without the need for control. to like to take the toxic monogamy piece out of it, to really look at how I was showing up and why, like really look at my needs and my wants and how I was effectively or non-effectively communicating those things, and how to listen to another person. And recently, so I was polyamorous, and I've been polyamorous with this person that I'm with here for almost 2 years. And recently my dad died. And it felt like a truck hit me. And when I woke up, when I came back into my body and was like, oh shit, I'm here again. Something happened where I had like being hit on by a truck and woke up on a different path, same destination. And I was like, you know what? I'm polysaturated. I have 6 lovers. I just need to like get it all clear. I have like just so much attention and effort. So I have like one person. I want to have kids. I want to go back to school. I want to get my business together, and that's it. And I transitioned all of these people into friendships, because that's what the foundation was based on, was friendship, which was different than ever before, where it was like this foundation of I could get something from you in that toxic monogamy relating piece. So that was a brief overview of my exploration there.
Thank you for sharing. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in. I have some thoughts.
I think if anybody else is watching and listening, taking polyamory classes when you're monogamous is really, really helpful. Just to like check your beliefs on how you love and what sex means. Like just to check your whole rhythm, because polyamorous people are really good at communicating. Well, most of the time. Scott, we can't hear you, but we want to.
I've coached probably about 100 couples or constellations on polyamory. And absolutely, it's essential to have good skills. It's a master's course of relationships. So I want to just again go to get a sense of what Shai has put together. I mean, these are great classes. And I agree with Trish. It's not just for people that are poly. It's for people who want to, understand. I mean, like befriending your nervous system. Yeah, we all need to learn how to do that. Emotional attunement. Obviously, mastering empathy. Tantra demonstration. We'll talk about Tantra. Lourdes is a dear friend of mine. I've coached Lourdes. Francesca, I've known her forever. You've got amazing people. Really, Jessica Fern, for heaven's sakes. You've got like the top leaders in teaching about polyamory, open relating, non-monogamy. So I really want to encourage everybody, go to leveleduplove.com, leveleduplove.com. And love to open it up to anything Stephen or Dolphin want to add here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll share. I've kind of moved in and out of polyamory in my own ways over the years. And one thing came to me in a few conversations when I was in the midst of exploring just different ways of relating and outside of maybe kind of the narrower band of what intimacy was taught to me as when I was growing up. And that was that I think that the naive approach to polyamory is that it's more of the good and less of the bad. And the reality of polyamory is it's more of everything and not a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's like it's in the exponential field. And so I believe love is unbounded and free to flow in natural spaces. Human beings have this amazing ability to shut that love down. But that is not to say that everyone is ready and prepared. It requires an incredible amount of presence and availability and vulnerability and clarity and integrity to move in that space well, just like in the monogamous world. But again, you're adding dimension and complexity to it that if you can't hold a monogamous relationship with clarity and integrity, the idea that you would be able to do it with more than one person, I think is It's just misguided, actually.
Beautifully stated. I really agree with that. One of the things that Shai brought up is the prejudice that monogamous people can have about poly people, and same way. I've heard poly people, oh well, if you're poly, you're more evolved. Poly people are more evolved, right? I've heard that line, and that's right up there with Republicans thinking the Democrats are bad and Democrats thinking Republicans are bad. It's just different lifestyle choices, and I want to say, for some people it's a choice, and for some people it's not. There are people that really are just wired monogamous. And there's some people that are just wired. I worked with a woman recently, and she was really clear. She was like, I've never understood why people wanted to get married or be in one relationship for the rest of their life. I've never understood that. And she was a healthy person, very healthy person. So we have to understand that, again, there's 8 billion different people with 8 billion different experiences of life.
Yeah, I just want to echo what you just said there, Scott, and then Chai. I'm acknowledging that you got your hand there and you want to chip in too. So I'll pass the stick to you in a moment. But yeah, I just wanted to echo what you said there, Scott, about how there tends to be like judgment or animosity towards different relationship styles, and yeah, I'm a huge advocate for an ideology or belief system where it's like we live in a world of infinity, and the different ways relationships express themselves is reflective of that infinity. And so yeah, just promote a way of being where all relationship styles are okay, and it's up to us as the individual to discern which is right and true for us and which isn't.
You're getting hearts from Trish.
Well said. Well said, Stephen. Thank you so much for sharing that. And if I can be vulnerable with y'all, I was that guy. When I got into polyamory, I was a polyevangelist. I thought I was better, believe it or not. I thought I was more evolved. I thought that I cracked the code, so to speak, to love. And then once I learned about attachment theory, I realized that it's definitely not for everyone. It's definitely not for everyone. My journey with it was my journey. I was monogamous for decades and came across the idea and realized that all the shame and the guilt that I felt for just feeling attracted to other people was not wrong anymore, because there was this thing called polyamory. And I was a faithful husband, but still carried shame and guilt for a very long time. I didn't know what was wrong with me. How could I be attracted and even feel love towards others and still love my wife at the same time? I felt wrong. And what I've decided as of late is that it's not about polyamory versus monogamy or any versus. It's about conscious relating versus unconscious relating. And what I mean by that, when I say conscious, I mean awareness. And when I say awareness of what? Awareness of our core human needs. So when two people come together and they communicate and with each other in a way where they can really be transparent, really truly be honest about their core human needs, which we are maybe you're all familiar with the 6 core human needs: feeling safe and seen and loved, having variety, growth, and service. Those are the 6, right? And being conscious and aware of our partner's core human needs jars, if you will, and asking them, do you feel emotionally safe and seen and loved? Great. Okay. Now, do you also have enough variety in your life? Do you feel stagnant, or do you have the variety that maybe would look like another relationship? Do you need that? I want to ask you that honest question. And then for others like myself, I found that I and my partners have grown exponentially, emotionally, erotically, spiritually, professionally, you name it. I've seen tangible growth in myself and in my partners on this road, less traveled. And then the opportunities to serve, that's a big core human need, to be able to serve and contribute to other human beings beyond just one partner has also been life-giving for me. So I'm conscious of my core human needs. I'm conscious of my partner's core human needs. And then I've learned to put on seatbelts and speed limits on our open relationship to really slow things down and communicate and emotionally attune and find those collaborations and those uh, ways to get everybody's needs met. And I've had some really incredibly beautiful experiences so far. It's been about 10 years and I wouldn't change it for the world. So I just wanted to give everybody like just the other perspective of what my journey is. Cause yeah, poly does get a bad rap and yeah, I get defensive sometimes, but I get it. I get that there's many roads that lead to Rome, right?
Beautiful. Well, thank you. We are celebrating Relationflix this weekend. And so I want to take a moment to talk about Relationflix and then kind of swing into some of the other kinds of things that we're going to find on Relationflix. So everybody, this is the site. It's relationflix.com. And you guys have a special going on, 14 free days. Tell us about that.
Hey, thanks for the intro, Scott. Yeah, so a few years ago, I realized there's this huge hole in the online self-directed education e-learning space where there really wasn't much available that was targeting relationships. So just this year on Valentine's Day, we launched our platform that we've been putting in blood, sweat, and tears, all the blood, sweat, and tears, as the saying goes. And yeah, our baby is live. And so what we do and what we are is we specialize in producing as high quality video content as we can. We're a team of videographers and filmmakers and pro video editors. And we want to deliver exceptional quality relationship education for a really accessible price point. You know, like one of the barriers to entry with getting world-class relationship education is, you know, a lot of people can't afford to travel to a destination retreat or hire a therapist once a week or once every couple of weeks or take like really high cost programs. And so we wanted to kind of level the playing field for pretty much everybody and offer world-class relationship education from incredible experts. We have, you know, a master coaches like Scott. We have a full-length course of his, as well as several single individual educational videos that he's done, and Amazon best-selling authors, and just this incredible team of therapists and coaches, experts, workshop facilitators, delivering content on intimacy, sexuality, dating, for people who are just starting into new relationships, all the way to discerning and navigating through a relationship ending and kind of everything in between. We want to support people at all stages of their relationship journey, whether they're single, in the honeymoon phase, deep in a long-term partnership, or just at the end of it. So yeah, that's us.
You know, Stephen, I unlocked the vault. And so I want to just kind of show people some of the amazing content that you have. So once you start your free trial, free trial, everybody. And so you go on, so it shows like the newest videos, and there's Sheza. Sheza's great. She's studied with me. And there's Trish, asking for consent, how to complain to your partner properly. She's really good at that. I want to say I love how good Trish is at complaining to, no, I'm just joking. Creating safety in relationships, codependency recovery, managing disappointment in dating, self-empathy. And then there's Paul Sterling, who is my roommate, and he'll be on our show tomorrow night. Paul's brilliant. And look at all these videos. There's a lot for women, and I know that the majority of people who watch The Awakening World are women. And you've got everything from exploring women's pleasure, increasing sexual confidence. Again, some of the stuff that I do. These are the popular videos. Yay, I made it to popular videos. Hidden gems. And look at all these different amazing coaches and things. Creating nourishing relationships. Meeting your needs the healthy way. I mean, every one of these topics is so important. I want to watch Stevens. Staying calm and confident on a first date. So there's so many different aspects here, and there's intimacy and sexuality, there's communication, conflict resolution, attachment theory and psychology, personal development. These are all videos, and they're all anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes long that you like, okay, I need help with something. I need to figure out, what I need to overcome trauma in my relationship. There's Dolphin providing it for us. So it really is this incredible one-stop place to get pretty much any question you might have about relationships answered. And congratulations, Stephen. You've done just a tremendous job. You and Dolphin. It's incredible content. Really incredible content.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, and it's just been an honor and a treasure working with you. And yeah, thank you so much for everything that you've done for the platform and the way that you've shown up. I really appreciate it.
While the spotlight's on you, Stephen, we've mentioned a couple of times attachment theory, but some of our viewers may not know what that is, and you're really my favorite educator talking about attachment theory. So give us a little primer on that.
Sure. Yeah. As someone who's been a relationship and sexuality enthusiast for around 20 years, I've studied different forms of spiritual sexuality, including Tantra and Taoism and other modalities and ways of thinking around sacred sexuality. I've studied emotional intelligence and compassionate communication with you, Scott, a lot, shadow work, and just kind of like this massive bouquet of different teachings and tools that are available. And I find the one that is just I think it's the most common language that we can all speak, because the science shows that this very interesting branch of psychology applies to absolutely everyone. They've been able to replicate these studies in every continent on the planet, in different languages and different cultures. And there's these patterns that show up for people that are universal. And so it's a language that we all speak and understand. And it's such an interesting typing system. That's essentially what it is that it's a typing system that shows us some of the core difficulties that we have that can actually sabotage our capacity to create, build, and sustain meaningful relationships with people. And when we get to know what our attachment style is and kind of the ins and outs and details of that, and start to reprogram out of an insecure attachment style into a more centered, stable, and secure attachment style, it just completely changes the game. And it changes the game in our intimate relationships with our friends and family members, in ourself, and how we feel. Like how centered and secure we feel impacts everything we do in our life. And it's just such an amazing modality to look at that and dive at that. And I know a lot of people who get into it kind of have this like mind blown moment of like, oh, this is why I've been showing up this way, or this is why this pattern has been showing up in all my relationships, or this is why I've been having difficulties A, B, and C throughout my entire life. And it's validating and so empowering to have a set of tools, and particularly vocabulary, language, to be able to name it, talk about it, identify it, and ultimately take this thing that's kind of maybe historically been messy and difficult for us to really understand into beautiful coherence and understanding and clarity. So that's my sales pitch on attachment theory.
Super important. Trish, how has attachment theory impacted you and your relationships?
Oh wow. Gosh. So understanding sort of the dynamic of how that plays out. So I'll just be honest. I'm really grateful for polyamory, because I would have never seen how deeply traumatized I really was, and how all the things that was coming up was like I was in a 3-year PTSD trigger with that one partner, because it was just touching my attachment wounding so deeply. And honestly, attachment theory has really helped me address the fact that I'm disorganized. So dating me in the past was like having someone pull you close and push you away at the same time. I'm like, oh, and these poor people were like, oh, I really want to connect with you, and I'm just, wow. So I've been practicing the tools of secure attachment or with myself. So working with self-sourcing, working with dissolving my own codependent patterning, really like attachment theory is really where it's at to see how you do the thing that you do. The common language, right?
Yeah.
I think the most relatable way that attachment theory can show up is like the example that I often go to is like, let's say I text my partner that I love them. I send them a message, I love you. And it's actually not necessarily coming from a genuine heart space. It's actually coming from a desire to connect. And so from a desire to connect, it's called an activating strategy, where I have a desire to connect with my partner. So I'll say, I love you, or you're sexy, or something like that. And the energetic undercurrent is, I want to feel connected with you. And if I have an anxious attachment style and there's that anxiety that's actually driving it, because there's an anxiety that I actually don't feel connected. And then there's the reciprocal attachment style of that, and that's the avoidant attachment style, where they receive a text message that says I love you, and a person with an avoidant attachment style who actually prefers distance rather than closeness most of the time will just kind of ignore the message and say, I'll text them back later, I'm busy. And then 6 hours have gone by and that person hasn't texted them back yet, and here I am being like, I love you and I want to feel connected. And during that space, a person with an anxious attachment style can start kind of spinning out of control a little bit into dysregulation and start running stories like, why haven't they texted me back? Do they still love me? Did they meet someone else? Are they cheating on me? Oh my God, did they get in a car accident on their way to work today? Why aren't they? I hope they're okay. You know, when we start running these anxious narratives inside that are driven from a desire to feel connected and close with someone. And that dance tends to play out when someone exhibits anxious attachment behavior and they want closeness, and there's an avoidant person on the other side who's leaning away. It can actually amplify the anxiety of the anxious person and cause them to lean closer and closer and closer, which has this unfortunate consequence of tending to push the avoidant person further and further away. And it can create this big messy chaos of like, I want to feel connected with you and I just need some damn space, back off. Like, why are you so needy and clingy? You know, are common words that avoidant attachers use. And so like attachment theory teaches us to deploy secure behaviors and healthy communication strategies. So instead of saying, I love you, that's actually riddled with insecurity and anxiety, I might say something like, hey, I'm noticing a desire to feel more close to you. Are you open to a quick conversation whenever you have free space? And the way that lands for people tends to just be a little bit softer on the nervous system and actually invites connection rather than having a tendency to kind of create these insecure, dizzying trigger tornadoes.
That was brilliant, and it's such a good example. And I've got all five of us on camera for a minute because I want to ask a question. Who has, at some time in their life, been anxious in their attachment style? And who, at some time in their life, has found themselves being avoidant? So that's what I was going to guess. So the point being that sometimes it's the relationship we're in. It's almost like when two people come together, there's two questions that everybody's wondering. When are we going to have sex? And which one of us is going to be anxious and which one of us is going to be avoidant? Right? It's almost like that. I want to read a couple comments, and it's that time, everybody. Questions. So put your questions in the chat box. And I've got a comment and a question for our group. Oh, Trish, first.
One last thing is that what I notice is that in all attachment styles is that they're wanting to feel connected, whether it's to self or to other. For me, as a more leaning, anxious partner, is that I do want to feel connected. And when I feel disconnected from myself, that's when I lean in on Dolphin or Steven or you, or, you know, I'm like, because that's a helpful way to get connection. And so when my partner, who's more avoidant leaning, he's like, I need space to feel connected to myself because he needs to be able to hear and listen. And it is about that slowing down, right? I love that you all spoke about slowing down.
You know, so when you're feeling that kind of nervousness, that anxiousness, there is a wonderful resource that I want to refer you to, Trish. It's called the Self-Love Show. And it's a terrific resource. It's the best. It's like, because when one loves themselves, they, can handle anxious attachment. So, oh my God, this is the show that you do every Thursday.
Scott, that's hilarious. You're so silly. Well, you know that the Self Love Show, some of you have heard about it, but the Self Love Show is really to offer everyone. It's for free access to tools of deeper self love, self security, self reliance, and it also offers ability to connect with other people. I'm also going to rope some of these Relationflix folks in, and will you please teach on my show?
Seriously, it's a terrific show. And I'm so proud of Trish. She and her partner Dawn have been doing this show really since the beginning of the pandemic, almost 2 years now, as long as I've been doing my stuff. And they bring on amazing people. And let's face it, the meaning of life is we're here to learn to love, starting with ourselves. So they're going to do the big poster every Thursday morning, 10 o'clock Pacific time, 1 o'clock Eastern. Definitely participate in the Self-Love Show. It's wonderful. So Trish, you're going to love this comment that came in. This is from Charles Betterton on Unify. Charles writes, remind me to meditate before ever riding in a car with Trish and to fasten my seatbelt extra tightly. So thank you, Charles, for that comment. Charles also goes on to write, I've been living in intentional communities for over 25 years, beginning in 1978, and serving as editor and managing editor of Community's Journal of Cooperation. I enjoyed an early education to polyamory, especially in some of the more communal, structured community networks. So, man, Charles, come on into our Zoom room. You'd be a good person to come on and talk a little bit with us. And then finally, there is a question that came in from Sheila asking, what does it mean to be trauma-informed? So I'll open that up to any of you. Any of you just jump on in. What does it mean to be trauma-informed?
I'll go. I worked for a number of years with homeless population, and so in the social service world, predominantly, and I think in mental health, professional mental health circles, it started as something where a few decades ago, trauma wasn't even really discussed. It was like, you got a problem, pull up your socks, like get over it, basically. And over the last 20 years and last 10 years in particular, there's been a distinct shift away from a kind of personal accountability centered approach to addressing those types of individual issues, to looking at social and societal conditions and environmental and historical conditions to go, oh, this is what's going on with this human being. So to me, a trauma-informed practice or a trauma-informed lens is one that takes into account the realities and the impact of trauma on the human nervous system, on human relationship, on human community, and then uses what we know often and hopefully, at least in part, from a science-based lens, where we're not just kind of in the fancy of our own imagination. We're going, no, like, what does the research say? What are the epidemiological studies around trauma? And what are the more sort of psychological, clinical studies that they do around trauma, telling us about what happens to the nervous system, what happens to human relationship? And then how do we inform how we show up, how we create programming, how we create interactions with people who have trauma backgrounds? And one thing I always like to say is, I think it's really valuable for us to get away from this idea that there are traumatized people and non-traumatized people. Everyone experiences trauma. Trauma is something happening to us that dysregulates us, that we can't quickly and easily re-regulate and easily process that experience. And so the unprocessed experience lands in the body and waits. It waits for a time when we feel safe enough and ready enough to return to the experience and then process it. And that, to me, that's the brilliance of the human nervous system, is it holds what it can't immediately take care of in the interest of doing it when we can. And so to me, a trauma-informed care or practice is about how do we create the right spaces, the right environments, the right relationships and interactions that support the human nervous system in doing what it's designed to do, which is to re-regulate when it gets dysregulated, and to integrate things that are difficult, not just so we can get back to zero, but like the integrated trauma makes us more than we were before it. So there's something that a lot of people talk about now, which is people have now likely heard of PTSD, post-traumatic stress. Now they're talking about post-traumatic growth. So there's actually this growing understanding around when we experience, not if we experience trauma, when we experience trauma, it comes with a host of difficulties and usually practiced behaviors that we build around those difficulties. And if and when we return to the trauma and really get to it and allow it to heal, we are more than we would have been without it. And that's maybe the beauty of life itself.
I could add something to that, a really, really quick comment. And maybe Dolphin, you know where I don't know where I'm quoting this from, but the most difficult trauma is not the actual event that a person experienced, but after that event, whether they had to carry that experience alone, they weren't supported for days, weeks, sometimes years, and they still carry it alone. And that's where the deep trauma is. That is what affects people the most.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of brilliant people who have said that. I know Gabor Mate is very big on making sure that message comes through in the discussion around trauma.
Yes.
And I have a way of framing that. I believe it is the absence of meaningful connection that allows a traumatic experience to become long-standing trauma in us, that with meaningful connection, somehow the human spirit and the human condition is resilient enough to come back from essentially any kind of experience. Like we look at things that happened at the Holocaust, and somehow people, now of course I'm not suggesting there weren't generational ripples from that, but we have examples of people that experienced absolutely unthinkable atrocities, and they're able to come back and be human. They're able to be compassionate human beings in the world, which is staggering to imagine.
One of the things that I wanted to comment on around trauma is how important it is for those of us who were blessed to have a relatively healthy home environment, that have had safety in our lives, to have compassion and empathy for people that are living in states of PTSD or anxiety, low-grade anxiety, or constant vigilance. And there's a fascinating study that my friend Jonathan Robinson brought up to me. They interviewed 1,000 men and 1,000 women and asked them just one question. When was the last time you were physically afraid? You were afraid that you were going to possibly have a physical attack or altercation. The average answer for a woman was 72 hours, within the last 72 hours. The average answer for a man was within the last 5 years. Yeah. And so there's an example where we as men just are oblivious to what most women live with in terms of having to feel safe. Conversely, oftentimes I'll work with couples where, let's say, again, I'll say it's the man, cannot understand why his wife is so anxious all the time. But if you delve into her background, you delve into the home that she was raised in or whatever happened to her, she's in a state of low-grade anxiety, or she's in a state of hypervigilance. And it's so important for us to really be as open-minded to understanding the trauma or the challenges that people that we interact with, especially in a more intimate level. Ask a lot of questions and be sensitive and be compassionate. So I just wanted to kind of add that piece. Stephen.
Yeah, I'd like to throw something in too. And as someone who's studied trauma healing, it's I definitely identify as a trauma healing enthusiast, and here's why. Leaning into our trauma healing is a similar pathway to leaning into our spirituality and developing ourselves there. And I say that because they have this common thread of both being these incredible pathways to liberation and freedom and more openness and more love, and having like a holistic, integrated spiritual practice that includes the question was, what is being trauma informed? That includes being trauma informed. It's kind of like, pardon the very, actually, it's just a terrible metaphor. I'm not going to say it, but having both of these running in tandem is double empowerment, at least in my opinion. And like being trauma informed, like what that means to me is that it's a simple acknowledgement that we all have these bodies that are beautifully designed by a divine intelligence, that are like the way that the body is designed is just this beautiful masterpiece of the universe. At least that's my perspective and my belief framework. And so much of the way that the body's been designed is so deliberate. And one of those very deliberate expressions of that creativity is the fact that we all have systems in us that are designed to keep us safe. It's really that simple. There's systems that run in us that are designed to keep us safe. There's actually a part of our brain in the midbrain, for the neurology nerds out there, it's the periaqueductal gray and supracolliculus. There's parts of our brain that are designed to keep us safe, full stop. It's the part of us that when we burn ourselves in a fire, it's like there's something that goes off in us that's like, oh, fire burn, fire bad, don't touch fire. Like, thank God we have these mechanisms inside of us. And it's when these parts of us that are stimulated, when there's an overwhelming event, and in the context of relationships, when there's something so significant that overwhelms our system and kind of sends our nervous system spinning out of regulation into dysregulation, there's often when the impact of trauma is there's something in us that subconsciously moves us to not get burnt by the fire again. And tracking those tendencies is really empowering. And something that I'm going to quote you, and something that you've said over and over in your courses, Scott, is like, when we get triggered, it's not necessarily that there's a threat that's present. Sometimes there just has to be the possibility of a threat for us to get triggered.
Yes.
Yeah. And so being trauma informed means like really looking at that. And when we do get triggered and kind of spin out of dysregulation, it's like, can we be attuned to what's true and real? Because when we get triggered, and often the veils of past pain, as you call it, or traumatic memories start to resurface, and we can project past experiences on a present moment when it's actually not valid to do so. And so having like a degree of centeredness and attunement to the moment can really be empowering and supportive in navigating when these types of situations arise.
Beautiful. I'm going to read a couple more comments that are coming in. Now they're really coming in, so I appreciate it. From Unified, Joni writes, I am so happy that you have this on. I finally have space to grow in this area. We all need love. I don't have a good relationship with my dad, and that actually traumatized me growing up, and it affected every relationship I've ever been in. But now I'm different. I do get anxious at the beginning of dating people. I get to be a nervous wreck, so it's hard to date. But I'm getting better at it now. And then she gets into one other piece a little further down. She said, this is deep. What Stephen said is a mouthful about how trauma affects a person afterwards. And handling it alone, thank you, Shy. Some of us are more compassionate and empathic because of dealing with the past. It's taken me all these years to learn how to find out that I do have PTSD from my childhood trauma. And she talks about the value of EMDR. What are some other practices you recommend? So does anybody want to talk about EMDR or some of the other practices that you're aware of or that we can find on Relationflix or in any of your offerings? Shy and then Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, there's different modalities to heal trauma, but one that stands out recently that I think it's worth exploring. I've never done it, but ketamine treatments seem to have some really interesting results. There's a company called Mind Bloom. I'm not associated with them, but One of my partners has been working with them. They tout that they've worked with 30,000 clients and have an 85% success rate with anxiety and depression. Um, I don't know how they measure that, but I do know that it's a fascinating um, medicine, if you want to call it that. Ketamine is actually what you'd use for surgery as anesthesia, but it's used with a guide, with a clinician, with a program, and it's worth exploring ketamine and a company called Mind Bloom, because I've seen some really interesting progress, anecdotally speaking.
Yeah. We actually did a show on plant medicine where we had people that are licensed to use plant medicine in that way, and it was fascinating. It was really fascinating. Stephen.
Yeah, I just want to advocate for what Shai just said, and I actually have direct experience knowing someone who I was close to go through ketamine treatment, and this person was saw a psychiatrist on a regular basis and was in and out of a variety of different types of medications and pharmaceuticals, and really nothing seemed to help, and a lot of what she was given and prescribed actually made her worse or created new issues, and it actually created other symptoms. But she did do a series of ketamine treatment, and it was actually a total game changer, and actually seemed to be the only thing that helped her at the time that she did it. So yeah, just wanted to validate that. But yeah, just in terms of dealing with our trauma, there's a practice that's often referred to as vertical integration. In plain English, when we go through an overwhelming event that destabilizes our nervous system, there's certain parts of our brain that go offline. And that's what makes trauma so tricky, is because there's parts of us that process memory that quite literally just go offline, and our body's life force and energy starts to be devoted to the parts of our brain that are more orientated towards survival. And because those parts of our brain go offline, it can create like this discombobulation, and or incoherence is a term that's often used. And that's the tricky part about trauma, is there's something in our past that happened to us that stimulated our survival response, but we don't actually have a picture perfect memory of. And so therefore this is like either fuzzy, or the term unintegrated is also often used. And so the whole process of bringing integration is really just about bringing clarity and understanding to what happened. And so vertical integration is a process where we look at what actually happened, and we lean in gently and slowly in a way that's loving and supportive, and really looking at what happened and revisiting it a little bit, which is actually something that getting here is even a hard part for a lot of people, because of the human tendency to lean towards what's comfortable. And so it requires courage and perseverance and strength to really lean in. And when we look at what's happened and revisit it in a way where we give ourselves permission to acknowledge the thoughts that are running, and we can even say out loud or journal, I am having a thought that blank, I am thinking that blank, I keep having a recurring thought about blank, or I think this person blank, or we basically journal what mental thoughts start to run when we lean into this past event. And we also notice what's happening in the body. And this is where emotional intelligence training comes in, super game changer, because we have the language and emotional literacy to be able to identify what's there. I'm feeling shame, I'm feeling guilt or resentment. And we can get to a fine point of what's true about what we're feeling in our body with clarity and precision. And it's that clarity and precision that creates coherence. The more that we can run what happened, be honest about what happened, notice the thoughts, and also identify, like, what are we feeling in our body? I feel tense in my heart, or I feel tightness in my belly. I feel like in our emotional system, I feel sadness, I feel rage, I feel anxiety, whatever it is, the more that we can give language to what happened and create clarity on what happened, the more that discombobulation starts to really become coherent and clear.
Beautiful.
And that's the trauma healing journey, is taking what's incoherent and bringing it into coherence.
Taking what's incoherent and bringing it into coherence. Let's just breathe that in for a minute. Dolphin, I saw your hand was up.
Yeah, I mean, I think I could talk about trauma and healing trauma forever. I wanted to just bring two names forward. Daniel Siegel, I think, is just an absolute brilliant man, and brings a unique. He basically, along with some colleagues, created a whole field of study called interpersonal neurobiology. So if people want to understand the nervous system and how it heals and integrates from trauma, I think he's a great place to go. Another name, Bessel van der Kolk, has been for many years sort of the preeminent researcher around trauma and healing. And I'm going to put a link to a really incredible video that he created. It's about 9 minutes long. And he talks about, this was done a couple of years ago, 1 or 2 years ago. So it's quite relevant and recent. He talks about the 6 treatments that have been proven to be most effective in healing trauma, helping people heal trauma. So I'm going to put it in the chat so people can check it out. And if you haven't read The Body Keeps the Score, do so if you want to learn more about trauma. That's Bessel's book.
Trish. I'm going to come back to Trish when she gets back into.
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. You froze on us, so let's try again.
Sorry.
Hi, Trish.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I can speak from my experience. That I've tried the psychedelics. I've tried everything, and the things that helped most for me were hypnosis, to really help hotness. That hot memory would literally throw my body into a like vibrational shaking freak out, into into just something that I could manage. So there was that, and then there was gestalt work, and to really start to be able to dance and make my body safer. Like being in my body became safer.
Beautiful.
Through some of these practices, through just making friends with the traumas that I've experienced.
Oh, thank you. By the way, your internet's a little shaky, just so you know. I'm going to read from Goddess Yoga, watching on Unify, writes, "Great show tonight. Thank you. My sister is a domestic violence survivor, and she's looking for a master's or PhD program to learn to be a counselor that can help others like herself. Since going through our awakening, we are both leery of Western medicine and academia being more of a Band-Aid talk therapy that never heals. I finally gave up on it all completely and sought my education in metaphysics, tantra, and kundalini yoga, energy healing, shamanism, plant medicine, etc. That's my path. My sister's looking for a university that might be right for her. Do you have any counseling program suggestions?" I will remove that. We all have to find our way. For me, going to traditional college and university was not my path. For some people, that is. One thing that we talked a little bit about plant medicine, and I want to acknowledge Matthew said, that it's important to not to be very careful with that, and that's true with any drug, whether it's recreational, whether it's pharmaceutical, whether it's plant medicine, anything we're putting into our body. Be careful, including another human being, right? It's like we have to really be discerning. And part of maturity is discernment. So being discerning about what we put into our body, what relationships we engage in. Let's be very discerning. Let's be informed. The theme of Awakening World, we say, be informed, be inspired, then take action. So any thoughts about education programs for the question we just got? Any of you got anything?
I just want to say I'm actually currently not aware of any organization that kind of weaves all of those components that was listed together. But what I can recommend is that there's a beautiful online platform called NICABM, and they run a myriad of trauma healing courses. And a lot of them are like fairly bite-sized chunks and from leading experts, and it's nice to have that kind of self-directed online learning environment, and it's in an accredited school, so you're earning credits towards a degree. That being said, if someone's going for their master's, I truthfully can't offer any guidance there.
Okay. Well, we are at 9 o'clock, so I'm going to give everybody a chance to share one last thought. And one of our viewers said, can we have some more stuff on hope? Because we've been talking a lot about trauma and the difficulties of polyagamy and all that. So you don't have to, but for each person's final thought, you can share whatever you want, and I'll go to your website one more time. But let's try and get at least a couple of hopeful messages in there. Shai, I'm going to go to you first. We haven't heard from you for a little bit.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that what you said just now was very resonant for me. That one of the things, just speaking about relationships, is that I think I'm hopeful that a lot of people are becoming more discerning. They are questioning a lot more than they used to. It's April Fool's Day. There's a little bit less of fools rushing in. I'm finding people are slowing down. They're not getting as married as quickly as they used to, right? They're seeing generations past, having made those mistakes. Nothing wrong with marriage. Let's just go into marriage, monogamy, polyamory, whatever it is. Let's be conscious. And I'm seeing so much more consciousness in everything that we do, the way we relate, the way we eat, the way we parent. There really is a lot of that, at least in my world. I see a lot of it. So I'm feeling very hopeful.
Beautiful. And again, I agree with you on that. We are becoming more conscious. At least the people that are attracted to watching this show and the people we have on the show. Hey, everybody, definitely go check out Leveled Up Love. It's great. And he's got Kamala Devi. She's been on my show. She's awesome. Jessica Ferner's great. These are real leaders in the field. And so go to leveleduplove.com and try the 30-day free trial and join in time to be in the class I'm going to be teaching a week from Saturday. Shai, thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm looking forward to meeting your community and being with you in about a week from tomorrow.
Thanks for having me.
2 weeks from tomorrow. 2 weeks from tomorrow. Stephen, you have offered so much wisdom. And by the way, we are going to get Stephen again tomorrow night and again on Sunday morning. So it's going to be a Stephen and Dolphin weekend. But any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, I have a message of hope for sure. This was alive in a conversation that I had with someone earlier today and yesterday, and it's my love affair with the Sanskrit word Gandharva, Ghandarva, Gandharva. If you look it up in the dictionary, you'll find that it simply means musician. But like most Sanskrit words, there's this beautiful, rich, oceanic depth of spiritual meaning to it. And the word Gandharva might mean musician, but the deeper layers of it mean one who bridges the non-physical world and births it into the physical world, which is what artists and musicians and creators do. Is they take an idea, something that doesn't exist and only exists in the non-material, and makes it manifest in the material. And as someone who identifies as a creator, there's amazing platforms and modalities and things being birthed into this world that really help move and evolve our species forward spiritually, relationally, emotionally, polyamorally. I think that's important. And I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge Shai's beautiful platform with world-class facilitators, and I see the Gandharva in you there, Shai. And also that there's platforms like Relationflix, for a very low monthly fee, and you get a free trial so you can see if it's a fit for you in the first place. There's just a bunch of world-class content from amazing facilitators that really move the needle forward with skill, personal development, and our ability to enjoy and persevere and absorb the nectar from an amplified relationship world.
I'm blown away
That's
with
my message
how
of hope.
much you have so much content here. And everybody go to Relationflix, free 14-day trial. Look at some of these topics. Like, I love this one. My partner is upset, but I didn't do anything. Who can relate to that, right? And because I filmed a lot of this content, I know that it's awesome, and I've gotten to know a lot of your teachers, and we will continue to be seeing your teachers this weekend. It's a Relationflix weekend, so I'm really excited about some of the other teachers we're going to meet tomorrow and on Sunday. Dolphin, what would you like to share?
Yeah, I mean, this coming together with like-minded and hearted folks for me is always inspiring. It reminds me that I think we can all get kind of siloed where we don't feel what else is going on in the world, and then maybe the 24-hour news cycle is not super helpful for us feeling inspired about humanity. But when we come together and in direct connection, we get to feel each other. And I think, human beings are naturally empathetic. We naturally feel each other. When things aren't being held up and put in the way, intimacy and connection and meaningful relationship are the natural consequence. And I think that's my message of hope, is that fear and hatred and separation require energy. Love does not. Love self-sources. And so, the very nature of our existence, the nature that life is relational at the most fundamental level, means that whatever feels in the way at some point falls away. And so I think our job in our time here, like, I love how you speak to it. We're here to learn how to love. I like to think of remembering how to love, starting with ourselves, and that's it's all there. We don't have to try to magically conjure it out of nowhere. It's like it's in us. It's a part of us, and then we have access to communities and coaches and programs and relationships that call us forward. And so that's my invitation to people is, in spite of where life might have been difficult or sharp or dark, keep inviting yourself forward in the direction of people, places, and things that are other than that. And then the path forward really starts to take care of itself.
Beautifully stated, Dolphin. Hey, Dolphin, I want to, in addition to Relationflix, and Dolphin has a lot of his wisdom on Relationflix, of course, but you can also find all things Dolphin on his Linktree site. And by now, most of my viewers are familiar with Linktree, and I've put that in the chat box. But tell us, you've got a couple of things coming up. Tell us about the End of Unfulfilling Love and about the Relationship Breakthrough Accelerator.
Yeah, cool. So this coming Wednesday, I have a webinar that I've constructed, and it's essentially an attempt to distill 20 years of work around how to resolve and come to peace with our past and really master what allows us to create the most meaningful relationships in our present. Deliver that on Wednesday. So people can kind of just save the Linktree link and the information for the actual broadcast, 6 p.m. Mountain Time on the 6th. That's coming up. And then I have a really unique group coaching program coming up in May and June of this year. So I'm doing intake through April, and that'll be an opportunity for people to get into a long-term supported community and coaching program with me, where we dive into all of the kind of early childhood stuff. We look at core belief, we look at core wound, we look at retelling our own story, and then we get armed with some really beautiful practices and approaches to how do we work with our unresolved pieces as they arise in the present moment in our present day relationships. So people will get a chance to work with me long term if they want to get involved in that.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again, Dolphin. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. And I'm going to go to our beloved Trish. Hey, Trish.
Hi, Scott. Hope. There's hope So the idea of hope for me is that when you're feeling that there is no hope, that you're at the darkest shadow spot of your life, just know that there's people you can reach out to. So you have a plethora of coaches that and therapists and your friends, if they're, people who you can lean on without getting into that codependent or like that weird attachment style piece, is that it does get better if you're willing to do the work. Um, just in my own personal story, is like when I didn't know, my life was following a certain path and it was really hard and really crunchy. And I started to, I mean, the most growth that I ever had in 1 year was when I had a therapist and a coach at the same time. And I was just moving forward. So know that when it feels like you can't ask for help or when you don't know where to go, just take that one first step. There's hope to have better relationships. There's hope to move from, being an avoidant or an insecure attachment style into an earned secure attachment. There's hope to do that. It's more than hope if you just want and choose to make that happen. And there's lots of places that you can get support.
Beautiful.
If you need help finding support, reach out and I can help kind of place you somewhere or lead you in the right direction. And I'm sure that one place to find hope and help would be Relationflix or Shy's platform, or Scott, I think you have something coming up. Is that correct?
Oh, well, since you happen to mention it, yeah, I am announcing that I am starting a course that I used to teach 2 or 3 times a year. And then the pandemic happened. I got very involved. I've hosted and produced 400 online shows since the pandemic began. And so that kept me pretty busy. But I have put together all of my best tips, tools, and practices into a 12-week course, which I've just opened it up. And it's going to be on Saturday mornings starting April 23rd, but people who register early can get the bonus class on April 16th. And then there's also an empathy practice group on Wednesday nights. And I'll be primarily teaching it, but Trish will be teaching a couple classes with me, and Katrina Valancourt and other love coaches will be coming in. And pretty much every week I'll have at least one guest love coach. And it's a great opportunity to really learn the best tips, tools, and practices that I've learned and taught over the last 30 years. And I've been doing relationship stuff really for 40 years. What I learned from Tony Robbins, Marshall Rosenberg, Daniel Goleman, you're going to get it all. And it's my group. We keep it to usually 30 people and a few love coaches. And it's a chance to really learn skills that are going to change all of your relationships. It's not just for romantic relationship, it's all your relationships. Family, friends. Trish is taking the course. Stephen Cook.
Relationship to yourself.
Most of the course is about our relationship to self, right? And then we refer people to the self-love show. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a great opportunity to learn and grow together. So join us. It will fill up. It always does. So you can get all the questions you have. Go to lcamasterclass.com. LCA, that's Love Coach Academy. lcamasterclass.com. And if someone is sincerely interested, I will do a free consultation for 15 to 30 minutes. I did 2 of those today, in fact, and both people signed up and registered. So do join us. I'm going to bring all of my friends back on one last time because I've got a couple of last comments that came in from our audience I just want to share with all of you that's kind of fun. Robin Delaney writes all about all the different times she's fallen in love. And she says, look, my advice, get married and divorced as many times as you want. The only thing that matters is who you have children with. That's kind of an interesting thought. And Tarina writes, thank you for sharing all these great stories and lessons. I'm so grateful for learning all these new and very cool places, including the Leveled Up Love site that Scott shared. And right off the bat, I learned about compersion as our wholehearted participation in the happiness of others. It's the sympathetic joy we feel for somebody else, even when their positive experience does not involve or benefit us directly. Thus, compersion can be thought of as the opposite of jealousy and possessiveness, and I learned that from Leveled Up Love. So there you go. So go to Leveled Up Love, go to Relationflix, go to lcamasterclass.com, take our classes, take our courses, and come back tomorrow night and invite your friends. We're going to have a really great show tomorrow night. And as always, Saturday night, we've got music. Tatiana Speed is coming back, and Mystical Joyride is coming back. Two of our favorite new musical artists. And then on Sunday, we're going to be exploring sacred sexuality as a pathway to spiritual understanding. So we've got a great weekend planned. Come and join us. Thank you, Shai, Steve, and Dolphin. I'll see you tomorrow night. Trish, aloha. We're all envious that you are in Hawaii. So take care, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.